And I'm going to, okay, you got recording good. I'm going to hit go live on Facebook. All right, we are just kicking off here. So we're going to give it a minute or two to let the live stream start and to let all the attendees file in. See, Wolf he had some background music for the first webinar I did with him. That was pretty cool. He's got like a fancy control deck with images and sound effects.
Wolf's just trying to make us all look bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and get rolling here. Thank you, everybody, for joining this live process teardown. We are currently broadcasting live on Facebook on my page, Peter Lohman. And of course, this is being recorded, and we'll be sharing this across my email newsletter and probably a few other places as well. So, what we're going to be doing today is doing a live process build or a live process teardown with a volunteer. And Mark has graciously agreed to come on and participate as a volunteer and let me rip into his processes and hopefully he gets some value out of what we end up rebuilding on the other side. So, Mark, if you wouldn't mind, maybe just give like 1 to 2 minutes on who you are, the company you're with, and what's been your background and experience with processes thus far.
Yeah, for sure. So we manage basically single family and other places in Utah. So we're here in Salt Lake and we manage about 900 homes. Don't do anything super big. So really single family. And basically our processes up until we are trying to get LeadSimple going it's been really disjointed. So we have some that are written out, some that are on Google Drive, some that are all over. We've been using Monday.com to track some information. And that's been really good for information, like a database, basically, but we just haven't found success with it for workflow process. So we started with LeadSimple last year in the spring, made no progress. Our fault, not LeadSimple's. We had some things come up. We did an acquisition, which really just, set us back. And then we just sat there and kept saying, oh, we got to do this. So everything was still disjointed and our team doubled over 2020. So we literally doubled in size with the amount of team members we have. And it's been difficult that way. So we are now diving into LeadSimple. We've had multiple team members try and do it. I'm mostly doing it right now. But we've got a couple of processes up and running, but I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. And so I started out of order and now I'm kind of paying the price. So we want to get our first process, the client onboarding process, going. And that is like very disjointed and not working. But we do have success with a couple of processes where my team loves it. And they're like, the team members who are using it, not our whole team, are like, please help me do more. They are asking for more processes. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, and I think your experience isn't unusual in that, you saw the promise, you dived in, and other priorities jumped ahead of a full rollout of process technology, whether that's LeadSimple or another solution. And so you're still a believer and you've got pieces and parts of it working, but it's not fully up and running. You've got some team members who are fully bought in, you've got other team members who aren't bought in yet. And so as soon as you relayed this story to me yesterday as we were prepping for today, I was like, this is perfect because this is very relatable and it gives us a great point to sort of jump in and actually start building. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at your new client or new property process, which you have some core functionality of that currently in Monday.com, and we are going to build that out in LeadSimple live right now. And so I'm going to share my screen. We're going to be looking at some of Mark's processes here. I'm going to move around some of my windows. All right. So we're just going to dive right into it. And Mark, if you can pull up your Monday.com, what you have going there,
Yeah.
I'm just going to click plus for new process type, and we're going to get rolling with this. This is going to be fun. All right, we're going to do new custom process. So would you call this your new client or your new property onboarding?
Yeah, well, it's man, that's where this is where we always get stuck because it's all the information that we want from the owner to get going. So, it's kind of property, kind of owner, and so we don't necessarily want to separate it. We
Okay.
would call it the client onboarding because it's getting the utility set up and the information, insurance, all of that.
Okay. I'm just going to call this new client onboarding for the moment.
Okay.
Um, I do find it helpful to separate new client onboarding from new property onboarding. This is something I actually got this idea from LeadSimple. But what you're going to run into is you're going to have existing owners who add on additional properties. And in that situation, it's nice to have just a straight up new property process or property onboarding process that ends up being pretty streamlined because you already have the client. And then on the other flip side, when you do have a brand new client, I think it's actually useful to think about your new client process separately from your new property process, because your new property process is a lot of operational tasks. It's getting it set up in your software, getting utilities in order, all these sort of traditional property management activities. But your new client process is an interesting opportunity. If a lot of people recommend this book, Never Lose a Customer Again. It's all about a 100-day onboarding program for new customers for all different types of businesses. And I find that to be a very useful way to think about onboarding a new client. Um, the property is going to be what it is. You're going to have operational activities around utilities and software. The client is a person, and so they require sort of a special touch. And so you can have, I've even heard of 3 month, 6 month, 1 year client onboarding processes where you have all these different touch points. So I'll get off my soapbox now. That can be something for another day. For now, we're going to roll with what you got. I don't want to reinvent everything for you all on one webinar. So we're just going to hit save here. We're going to leave all these users as default because I don't know who your people are and who needs this. So we'll leave all this for now.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm trying to think about what else. We're probably going to want to add some contacts here. So these are folks that are external to your company that may interact with this process in some way. And so what's classic is, PM owners, PM tenants, propertyware owners, propertyware tenants, propertyware vendors. So you're going to have probably prospective clients. Well, do you set them up in your software? Like, are they going to show up in propertyware first before you kick this off?
So this is the question always is
Okay.
we received the management agreement, right? So they're probably already in there because we do use this as our CRM for new clients. So they're probably in there as a prospective client. And then when we receive the management agreement, we immediately build it into Propertyware. So they're added at that point. And then we send out an owner intake form. But that's part of the owner onboarding process. So it might be
Okay.
best to start with prospective clients and then merge when we need to. That's something we need to figure out.
Okay. That's all good. That's a very common scenario. I've got the exact same situation with Buildium. And we probably don't need to involve tenants or vendors or brokers. This might be the only external contact we need for this process. And I'm going to leave all this other stuff as default for right now. New client onboarding for property.street. I think that's probably fine. That's the name that it assigns. We'll dive into stages and workflows. That's kind of the meat of it. Email templates, text and message templates, custom fields. I think this is all fine for right now. So what we need to do now is think about the stages. And if you haven't worked with LeadSimple specifically before, the way to think about stages is a significant milestone in the completion of a process. That's the best way to summarize it in a few words. And so you'll end up with a series of sort of major stages, major milestones in the completion of a process. And it's useful. It's useful because each one of these stages will have a number of to-do items underneath it. And then when you're looking at like the overview of all of your processes, it'll show you the stage that it's in. And so you could look through half a dozen or a dozen different processes and see at a glance the stage that that particular process is in, which is really useful, right? Because it's more information than just like a percentage complete, which you would see maybe in like a process street checklist. I'll just show you like the percentage complete, but seeing the actual stage can be really useful. So you want to give these stages good names, and they should be relevant to the specific process that you're running. So the default names here are fine, but they wouldn't tell you a whole lot if we just left them here. So as you look at your Monday.com, what are the major milestones in the completion of this process?
So we have basically we're there. So we have, this is the question of what you want to do in here. So we collect like we have them do their landlord agreements, right? But that's property specific. We collect their banking information, which is owner specific. Sometimes it's property specific if they have an LLC. So what we consider the owner file is gas is all set up, Rocky Mountain Power or the power company is all set up, water, sewer, garbage is set up, HOA is set up, banking information set up, insurance is set up, and then business license if necessary. We consider that the owner file.
Okay.
And so our basically where we have is incomplete. We're still waiting for things to be done, right? And that's where we could, that's where I need advice is, do we do just it's all incomplete and we're gathering, or do we say like stages are like, hey, gas is done, power's not, right? And that's where you can kind of guide.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to group those utilities together. I don't know that we need a separate stage for gas, a separate stage for water, a separate stage for all the different utilities. What were some of the other ones besides the utilities that you were rattling off there?
A homeowner's insurance.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of like that would be sort of we'll make a stage for it right now. We're probably going to end up combining that with something else though. That's kind of overkill for a stage. And then there's like an owner intake form, right?
Yeah. Yep. So the
Okay.
owner intake form is the first thing that we want to get done, because a lot of this information is going to come from that. And then we're going to go from there and just verify, check with them and make sure. So that's kind of the initial thing. Once the management agreement's signed, the first thing we do is send out the owner intake form.
Okay, so there's going to be some initial setup where we may do a little bit of pre-work. There's going to be an owner intake form stage where you're going to send out and maybe receive back some sort of a form, like I think you use Gravity forms. Is that what we said?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Wolf is going to jump in here in about 30 minutes and help us diagnose an issue with your owner intake form specifically. So that should be fun. We've got some utility set up. We've got some like insurance or miscellaneous other paperwork set up. And then
banking and tax, like banking and W-9.
Okay, yeah, let's put that all in here. This is like financial paperwork. This is going to be like, I'm just going to do this real quick so I don't forget. Banking, W-9, insurance, right? And we can come back and edit these and make them fancy.
Yep.
One thing I've been doing, which you may find helpful, is when I send out my PMA for signature, I actually include a W-9 on the back end of it. It's just like part of it. You can't sign a PMA without signing the W-9 because we know we're going to need it.
Yeah. We've gone back and forth on that of, hey, do we just want to get the management agreement signed, get to work, or do we want to make them do more work to get it signed? So totally not one right way to do it.
I'm heavily in the camp of make my owners do more work because I feel like if the owner can't take time to fill out a W-9, like, okay, go to the back of the line. You get out of here. I'm going to deal with an owner that actually wants to work with us and is willing to do more than 3 seconds of work.
Totally.
Okay. Financial paperwork. How about like setting up the property in PropertyWare?
Yeah, so that's initial. That's going to be initial setup, because once the management, because what kicks this off is we received a management agreement, because everything's in our lead flow, right, until that point. So in the initial process setup, we are going to have enter it into PropertyWare. That's going to be the first thing that we're going to do.
I'm going to actually have that be a separate stage. I'm going to call that like propertyware setup. And what we're sort of doing right now, which is like a little bit of bantering back and forth, a little bit of moving stuff around, a little bit of renaming stuff. This is all completely normal. Like I just want to normalize this for everybody. There's no perfect way to do this. I guarantee if Wolf was doing this with you, this would look different, right? He would have different names. He would be thinking differently about exactly how this is going to flow. Some of it is just your own experience, how many of these you've done. Some of these is everyone just has a different idea of how they think about things. But don't be intimidated by processes of your friends or colleagues or that you've seen on webinars or in the demo account for LeadSimple. Like, do what works for you. This is software, right? We can change this. We can update this. We can move these things around. And especially in the beginning, when you're building a brand new process, this is the time to be a little creative and free form and just like it's kind of fun to move these things around, right? They change colors. They have this nice fluid motion. Like, why not play around with it and get comfortable and familiar with the tool that you're using? I think that goes a long way toward building the muscle and taking away, because at least for me, there's always a little bit of fear when I'm using a new product or a new piece of software, especially around something as important as process. And so the more I use it and the more I mess with it and the more I play around with it, the less fearful I am of the software. And it just is going to make me much more likely to be comfortable jumping in here and making changes in the future. Okay, so we're going to do some process setup. We're going to do some propertyware setup. We're going to get the owner intake form. Is this the right order?
Yeah.
We're going to do some utility setup. We're going to do some financial paperwork. I'm going to get rid of this working stage. It's kind of redundant. And then we've got like a completed stage. And then do you ever have an owner cancel kind of partway through?
Yeah. Every
Okay.
once in a while, right? They sign the management agreement and then they sell it or whatever happens. So
Okay, we'll just add a canceled stage called owner canceled. I don't think we're going to need a backlog stage for your new property process because just not really relevant to this process type. So I'm going to delete this.
Okay.
But if we need it, we'll add it back. So no problem. All right, let me just take a look at the chat here real quick. See if there's anything good going on. Okay, just Wolf was dropping a recommendation to that book that I mentioned, Never Lose a Customer Again.
Yeah, that's probably the most impactful book we've ever used as a company, honestly.
Oh, wow. Very impressive.
Yeah, we love that book.
What
Oh, go ahead.
What are some of the items that you've kind of implemented from that?
So our owner onboarding process, we really kind of wanted to change that and make it where we are following up with them all through 90 days. So we added some like hand holding touch points. We added some things where we're trying to make it easier. We added some gifts to the process to say, hey, thanks for all the hard work you've done and just make it a better experience.
Okay.
All the way through the 90 days and beyond. But really that first 90 days is what we really wanted to do and just add some personal touches.
Okay. Very cool. I'm thinking through our property onboarding process. Do you have any other software that properties need to be added to, like Abodia, Property Meld, any sort of other software where it needs to, like Monday.com?
Yeah, so Monday.com it won't need to once we get this up, but
Okay.
we do use Property Meld, and that was one where I was like, is that a property setup? Is that an owner setup? Is that it? Right? So software setup could be for all the software.
The nice thing for us is that the Buildium's marketplace, Property Meld integrates with it now, and they just finished our integration for us. So now every time we add a property to Buildium, it automatically adds it to Property Meld and vice versa. So that's like one less step for us in this process, which is really nice.
Yeah, and I believe ours does too, but sometimes we want to check just to make sure everything looks right. So it could just be like a checkup, right?
Yeah, and I'll put this in a different order here. We'll do propertyware first, and then how long until it syncs?
I think it's just within a day, so maybe just drop that a day.
Yeah, I'll make that like one day after. So what I did here, for those who may not have messed with this before, I created this task. So when you're creating new tasks in LeadSimple, you've got these buttons down here, and these are the different types of tasks or to-do items you can create within a stage, right? So we're within this software setup stage right here. And so I can create an automatic or a manual email. I can add a to-do for a call. I can add a text message, a to-do, a meeting, jump to another process or create a process or change stage within this process. And so normally you kind of default to do. That's sort of like the most commonly used one. And then you can change the due date or the delay between when the task is actually due. So here, this one is due immediately. Set up propertyware. Set up new property in propertyware. I don't know if that's the right capitalization. And then 1 day later, we want to confirm property appears correctly in property meld, which is just a piece of software. And I set up a 1 day delay to allow time for property meld to sync with propertyware. And some of this stuff over here is, you can delete a step. You can do conditional logic, which I don't know if we'll get into that today. You can add a reminder for this step. You can select who you want to assign the process to. We haven't messed with roles yet, but that's something we may get to. You can make a step sticky, which means if you change stages, the step will remain. You can have a stop task, which means the workflow won't proceed until you complete that item. And then you can add instructions like, if you have specific instructions here or a Loom video showing, hey, here's how you set up a new property in propertyware, this would be the place where you would add that.
And Peter, do you suggest on any process that you do, rather than assign something to a specific person, you always want to make roles so that it's easier to diagnose down the road? Or what's kind of your thoughts there?
So I'll tell you, this is kind of a do what I say, not what I do moment. What we do is we don't mess with roles. We just manually assign. So like we just manually assign, like I would just assign, where was that one we were just messing with? Software setup. I would just like manually assign this to a specific person. That's what we do. What you should do is have roles for every process. And so, this should be assigned to a role. Let's just mess with it right now while we're in here. Let's create a role called admin assistant. Okay, so here it is, admin assistant. We'll add another role like property manager. So here are our 2 roles, and we can delete them or add more. And now when we're messing with our stages, instead of assigning this to a specific person, what if this person is on vacation? Or what if they're taking a 6-month sabbatical, or they're no longer with the company? Well, now you got to go in and make all these changes, or it's unclear who should be doing it. Instead, what we probably want to do is assign this to admin assistant. So I'll hit save. Now it's got A for admin assistant. Now when you run this process, it's going to ask you, hey, who's the admin assistant right now? And you select a specific person. And now for this specific instance of the process, that person who you assigned as the admin assistant will be assigned to these tasks. So that's really the right way to do it. I think as for anyone who's building new processes now, that this feature is so well thought out and LeadSimple that I think it just makes sense to do that from the start.
Yeah, and for our company specifically, an example is we have 3 applications processors. And so if we can't assign it to one because it could be one of the 3, so our applications team lead goes in and says, all right, I'm assigning this role to somebody so that we don't have to go through every step and assign it to a person. It makes it just one click to assign all those tasks.
Yeah. Okay. What else with software? Heidi had a suggestion here. Do you do like a test transaction, or do you do an ACH setup for property owners? Anything like that we need to include in here?
So that comes, but that's part of the banking process, right? Like once we've gotten their bank, so that'd be in the financial paperwork. So
Yep.
yeah, you could add like a test, test banking information to make sure it's correct.
Got it. All right. Got some extra tasks in here. Okay. So let's keep building this out a little bit. As you look at your your existing process, what do we need to add here? Should we pick one of these and go kind of deep on it?
Yeah, we can go in, we can go a little deeper in if you want to go into so like the initial setup is um the initial setup really isn't much because it's just a management agreement. So one thing I wanted to ask you is, for triggering this at the very, very beginning, we would love to trigger it with a management agreement is signed, and that triggers the process.
Yeah. So let's see. Um, let's go into your leads here. P property where. Oh, do I
Uh,
have access to like
Let me see. It might
your
not have
sales
given me.
pipeline?
Let's see. I'll add it right now. I don't think it did. So it'll be under prospective clients. All right. If you refresh it, it should pop back up. There you go. Prospective clients up above.
Yep. Okay, so this is one of the best parts about LeadSimple because you're going to tie the two major core functions together. Let's go into settings. Let's go to a signed contract. This green signed contract, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. It's nothing better. It's like your bride on your wedding day, your newborn child, and then like the signed contract in LeadSimple. It's like that's the order, right? Okay. So okay, you've got this automatically move to stage follow up NPS. All right, so all we need to do here is, oh yeah, you've got it. You've kind of got one here. Start process, client onboarding. So this must have been a process you were kind of playing around and trying to get working.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So you got the right idea here. Start process, and then we're just going to select the one that we just we're working on, new client onboarding. I'm going to move that ahead of your old one. And then as soon as these other items are complete, you'll just click that
And that'll be the trigger.
and it kicks it off. Yep, that's the trigger.
So one important question I have, because I still am confused about this. When you are doing a process, and you start, so anything that's in leads or in prospective clients, if we kick the process off from inside there, what information does and what information does it not pull over into the next process?
You know, I was just asking them about this. It's so funny that you say that. Um, okay, so I believe custom fields, if they have the same name, I might unmute Wolf here for this. He probably knows the answer exactly. Why don't you say, Wolf, because I think you know the right exact answer.
Yeah, so basically, when you have in your custom fields, there's on a pipeline, you have lead custom fields, contact, property, etc. Those lead custom fields are stuck in lead world. You can share them amongst leads, but they can't hop over into the process side. And so, kind of a really good best practice is, well, I don't know if there's a such thing as a bad best practice, so I shouldn't have said that. But what you should do is have the majority of your custom fields tied to people and properties, because contacts and properties jump between the sides. So if you have a custom field on a property, it's accessible on the pipeline side and the process side, and really look at what are those bits of information that we want to store. And when you really think about it, the bulk of them really are about properties and they're about the people. And so you can, have that. When you have the custom fields on the process, don't only put custom fields in the process section that are specific for that process or maybe a couple of processes, but you'll find when you really think about it, the bulk of your information that you want to store is tied to the property or to people. So like on ours, we don't have a tremendous amount of custom fields on the lead side, just because that information it stays on the leads, and we're trying to get people out of leads and into actually working with them. We do have some, but that kind of answers that.
Okay,
What?
so I just click custom fields here where it says leads. It sounds like
Yeah.
these do not go with when you turn a prospective client into a new process, new client onboarding, but this contacts, the custom fields here will.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you go ahead and click on any one of those fields, because we were talking about this yesterday. Click on where it says choose where this field can be used. That's where you can kind of clean things up, because you may have like 200 custom fields for properties. Well, you don't want all 200 showing up every time. You want, okay, in this process, I need to know paint codes. I don't
Yeah.
need to know number of bedrooms, right, or whatever it is. So you can customize what fields are showing up where, and that's where it's really, really powerful. But you can see here how on the contact field you can put them in pipelines and processes. If you were to go ahead and click cancel and click on the are you interested in purchasing more rental properties, you'll notice that one I can
I
only
see.
share amongst the pipelines.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Very interesting. Thank you for that, Wolf.
you're welcome.
So Heidi was asking pretty much exactly this. So I hope that answered your question, Heidi. Okay. So let's dive back into this process.
So just jumping on that one more degree, I want to ask you guys. So
Mhm.
if we say, okay, everything starts at the new client onboarding, right? So management agreement signed, new onboarding was set. Then we've got some information that we want to ask that
Mhm.
is going to turn into like a process field down the road for something. Can we answer those in this phase? Could we have somebody answer those, share notes, update custom fields? And then as long as we kick off the property onboarding and we kick off the maintenance and we kick off the marketing, all of those custom fields will follow along as long as they're shared between those processes. But once you kick off the next one, if you edit any of them, it won't edit throughout. Only property fields or contact fields will edit for everything. Is that true?
I think let me make sure I understand it correctly. So you want to have like in your onboarding, you want to ask like everything about them and their mother and store that information, because down the road you may want to know what their favorite pizza toppings are or whatever, right? You don't need to act upon it now, but you talked about in your 90-day process you send gifts. Well, we want to know like what's their favorite food now, so that in 90 days when we run our, you know, surprise the owner process, we'll know exactly what to send them. So the contacts and properties, that when you make a change there, it will change everywhere. If you look at, Amy posted a good thing in the chat. If it's something that you want to change every time the process runs, that's where it would be good to have it as a process field. But for example, you know, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, HOA information, insurance information, unique features, you know, all of that, that's not going to change more than likely, or it's not going to change frequently. You would keep that at the property level. But if, for example, every time you run your onboarding process for an owner, you want to update source of referral, or, you know, something like that, that would be a process field.
Okay.
I think you've got this set up right, Mark. You've got a bunch of custom fields under the property, and that's going to stay with it. Like, you're going to have this available for client onboarded, you're going to have it available for lease renewal, you're going to have it available for anything that happens with that property in the future, and it's updated everywhere instantly, I think.
Yeah, where I made a huge mistake was on the scheduled move out date. So the first process we used was our marketing process, where we said, okay, either we got notice to vacate or we got an owner intake form, and we started the marketing process. That's the first one we did. I went out of order. But what I did was I created a process field for the move out date. And so that was working great when we were only using that process. Then I started adding 2 more processes, and I said, oh man, now if you update that in any of the processes, it doesn't update it somewhere else. So I'm the only one they reached out to, and they said, hey, our move out date, we're pushing it back a week. Well, if I update that, I want it to update our maintenance team, and I want it to update lots of people on our team, because that does not pull directly from PropertyWare. That does not work. So I had to go back after, make that a property field, and go edit everything. Like, it was a ton of work. So like, you want to do it the right way the first time. So that was the advice I learned, was if you're going to build a field that needs to be used in a lot of different processes, you've got to do it right the first time, because it was painful to go back and change it.
The other way is because so I would say like a move out field may be a process specific, is to go in and where it says where's this field available can be viewed, and then just select all the processes that would use that field, and then that way it will be updated in just those processes.
So the issue we ran into was, if it's a custom process field, once you go into like your maintenance field or you go into your marketing field, it doesn't update each of them, right? You have to fill it out separately in each one, because custom process fields don't go across each other. So that's where we had to change it to we actually changed it to a unit field, because if a property field, I did property first. So I did it wrong twice. Learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Very good. Okay. So we've got about 10 minutes before I want to give Wolf a chance to diagnose your form issue. Anything you want to dive into specifically, Mark?
Mainly just the follow-ups. I think what would help is I've seen a couple of different ways to do follow-ups. So let's go into like the utility setup section. And now we got to follow up on their landlord agreement for gas, and we've got to follow up on their landlord agreement for Rocky Mountain Power, and we've got to follow up on their did they get their HOA information? I guess that's not under utility, but their water, their city utility bill. So our company specifically, we have all the bills come to us. If there's any utility bill, they all come to us. And then they sign up for a landlord agreement. So we need, has this been received, yes or no's, and follow-ups with conditional logic built for each one of those items.
Because the owner has to do it. You can't do it for the owner.
Yeah, so the owner has to call the utility. Unfortunately, gas and electricity, the owner has to call, because there's a specific form they have to fill out to give third-party authorization. But the company will only give them that form when they call. They email it to them, and then it's a dumb process, but we have to work around it. So we need follow-ups on, have they done it? Have they done it? Have they done it? Have we received it? I would like to see how you would build that.
Okay, so we need to send property owner. Send property owner the gas landlord agreement. That's the first thing. Is this an email that you send to them?
Yeah, so what we actually are building is, we have based on the city that they're in or the area that they're in, we actually have different templates that will go out and will say, hey, you're in Salt Lake City specifically, there's different requirements than if you're in Murray City, and that will send them the instructions for that. So if you click into that, would have been in if you could see from other processes. But yeah, we send the instructions in an email.
So I think,
okay, got it.
That is a huge pro tip right there that Mark said, that, on the back end, it makes things look kind of crazy, because there's like, why are you sending like 10 of the same emails? But because of conditional logic on the front end, you're only going to see the one that applies. And so our utility situation is somewhat similar. And so we have the Pittsburgh email, the Antioch email, etc., and it's customized for that. It's a huge time saver.
Yeah, especially because we have cities here in Utah that require a business license, and we have those that don't.
Yep.
That's another step that we don't want to bug them with the business license instructions if they're not in a city that requires it. We'll recommend it, but we don't want to bug them with it if it's not required. So,
okay, so what I just did was I went into the custom fields and I made sure that the custom field talking about the gas company is visible to this process. So now I can set up conditional logic here that says if gas company
there's a better one. Go back into the custom fields.
Oh, okay.
And search all the custom fields for owner gas, and then there's an owner. Go down. There's an owner. That one, owner gas setup complete.
Okay, so I'm doing what Wolf was saying. Choose where this can be used. I'm going to make sure that our new process that we just started has visibility. And now I'm going to go back into where we were, back into this conditional logic. where owner gas setup complete is no. We definitely want that. Yeah, and then I think we could set up a series of reminder emails to the client, and we could set up so the email that gets attached to this. Is there some custom field we can use so the owner gets the right information about the gas company they need to contact?
Yeah, the client's city would
Okay.
would say that. So the conditional logic would be click on, I don't know if it'll be added into this, but client city is a custom field that we have,
Okay.
and that pulls in from the owner intake form, and then we have someone confirm it at the very beginning, and then say it's Salt Lake City. Then this would pull in the email for Salt Lake City based on conditional logic that said the client city was Salt Lake City.
Okay. And so the situation here is we don't, you might be tempted to click add a reminder here, but this is actually just going to remind us, like Mark and his company and his employees, to do this, which maybe you want that, but it seems like what we really want is a reminder to go out to the client if they haven't done this yet, right? Like give them 2 days or something. And, reminder, maybe it's like call a client and remind them. You could even do a text, right? Maybe that would make more sense. A text reminder that might get someone's attention. 2 days later, gas landlord agreement reminder text. And we can send this to clients. I don't like these stop tasks. I rarely use them. I usually turn them all off. I like to see everything I need to do when I'm running a process. And we will set up that same conditional logic where owner gas setup complete is no. That's the only time we would want this to be displayed. And I guess there's no lightning icon for a text to go automatically the way there is for an email.
There is if you have a template, and we don't have text set up. So that's another thing we
Okay.
need to do. But there
Yeah, we
would
talked
be.
about that. We can look at that really quick. Yeah, we could set up these text message templates. Right. So texting, I know you mentioned that on our initial setup here. So all we would need to do is set up a new shared number. What's your area code?
801.
Okay, we're gonna drive a little bit extra revenue for LeadSimple right now with like 5 cents a month or whatever this is gonna cost. So Jordan, check that off. Okay. All right. Do you like any of these numbers? Do you want me to pick one at random?
Do the 8459018. It's like 5 down right there. That looks great.
Okay, this is gonna be Wolf, are you I always get a little bit confused right here. Do you do a lot with texting?
Yes, we do a ton of texting.
Okay.
I should say ton compared to our door count. We're not, 1,000 door company, so I don't know. Some people may not call it a ton, but yeah, we do.
All right, so we're gonna do property. Well, probably property where owners, and assign this to. We'll just give it to Adam for. Oh yeah, you select all the users here.
Can you select more than one user?
Yeah. So I
Yep.
just selected 3 right there,
Okay.
and there's no lead sources set up, so I can't actually finish this. So we may have to go through this again.
That was part of my question was,
Yeah.
do we have to create a lead source
I think we
for
do.
each text line? And
I
do
think
we need a text per
we just need to
person?
go into this will be easy. We just need to go in here and create a lead source. It doesn't even really matter what it is, I don't think.
Yeah, just call the lead source propertyware. Because in theory, you shouldn't be getting any new leads per se in this channel because this is what's syncing with your propertyware account.
Yeah. All right, now we'll go back into settings. We'll do all that again. What was it? 801 or something?
801. You can, whatever number's fine.
All right, so you select multiple users and then we'll provision. Okay, it's $4 a month. It's $4 a month, not 10 cents a month. All right, so we'll click that. And now we should be able to text.
Part of the reason we haven't set that up yet, where do the texts come back into? Is it just an email, or is there like a phone number that we can tie to like an actual phone?
So it's not going to forward the message to like a physical phone. The messages will be embedded into either that process or that lead, or whatever. You will get a little notification depending on how you have your user profile set up.
Okay.
And then if down the road you were to sign up for inbox, then you actually get an inbox for that phone number and you can do some more cool stuff.
Cool. I am a novice in that area.
Now, I wouldn't consider yourself a novice when you're busting out city-based logic on forms that you're emailing the owners.
Agreed.
I'm in text.
That not quite black belt, but you're a, what is it, like brown? We'll give you a brown belt for that move. That's a good one. The only thing I would add, if you want to get to black belt, is that you actually, since they're PDF forms, you send them a link to one that's partially filled out, so they just have to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got on with Mark yesterday to get ready for this call, and he starts driving me around his LeadSimple account. I'm like starting to sweat. I'm like, all right, am I going to actually be able to add any value to this guy? Because he's got like, this isn't like somebody's never used it before.
That made me feel good, Peter, because I thought you were gonna rip me apart.
No, I think you're pretty far along. So, okay. So I think I want to hand it over to Wolf to diagnose your form issue. So let me see if I can make him. I'm gonna make Wolf. I just made you a co-host. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay. So we are troubleshooting, if I understand it correctly, which this will be fun because I'm not a Gravity Forms user, but basically Gravity Forms is collecting data and you're wanting it to update stuff inside of LeadSimple, correct?
Yeah, so because I went out of order, our property marketing process, the owner intake form was tied to that. And it started out working, but it was hit or miss because the information wasn't always accurate. And now it is like not working at all. And we thought we fixed it, but it got worse.
Okay. Why don't you, and you're using Zapier to do that relay?
Yep.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen and pull up your Gravity Forms?
All right, let me log in.
I see it while we're waiting for that. Mike asked what software lets you profile. Oh, pre-fill forms so the owner doesn't need to input again. So there's a lot of options out there. If it's a true PDF form, probably one of your best options is PDF filler. That's they got a lot of cool things that you can do. If it's not a PDF form, like it's maybe like an online form, like we're going to see here, Gravity Forms or Google or Jotform, you basically are going to send them a URL that not just goes to the form, but then it has like a whole bunch of extra stuff with like question marks. And basically each question mark is saying, okay, gives a field, and then you'll put like a LeadSimple field next to it, and so that's how you'll pre-fill, because then when they click that URL, it takes them to the form and already fills in some of those fields. But if it's a PDF form, PDF filler, I will say if you're looking to do like your zip forms, if you have state forms, you'll have to Google how to do that, because I will not give the answer to that one in a recorded webinar for LeadSimple, but there are ways to do that as well.
All right, so we're in our Zaps. I did not
Okay.
set this up, so I am very novice at Zapier.
All good.
And this is the one.
Okay, so let's go ahead and let's crack that open and see what we got here. All right, so form comes in, find lead, update lead, find property, create process. All right, so let's go ahead and open action number 2, find lead in LeadSimple. And pipeline, prospective client, search for by email. Should this, so when you're saying that it's totally not working, like is it just putting in like wrong answers, or it's saying I can't find anybody, have a nice day?
Yeah, it's not. So it was working off and on, but the problem is if we go off. So first we started off address, but then if somebody writes lane, LANE instead of
Yep.
LN, it was a mess. So then we switched it to email, but sometimes the owner give us a fake email to start, give us a different email, or it's their business email, it's their investor email. And so then we were also missing it. So the last probably 10 that have come in, and it was starting the marketing process. It was awesome. And we were like, yay, this is great. It was going in. Probably the last 10 plus owner intake forms, nothing's happened. So we're manually starting, and all the fields that should have been pulling in, we're doing all the work manually. It's not pulling anything over.
So I'm wondering, just in throwing out there, do we want to, since this is the form that sounds like it's collecting all the information as part of your onboarding process, do we want it to reroute its answers to update on your onboarding process?
Yes, that's going to be the goal now, is now that I got smart and I'm starting with the onboarding process instead of the marketing. I went out of order, guys.
No, so I actually had this conversation with LeadSimple because there's a new feature I'm testing. And I was like, man, now that I know it can do this, I'm gonna redo all this other stuff. So you're like constantly redoing things because you're like, oh, I have new capabilities, I have new powers. So don't feel bad about it. So I think what we'll do here is really, rather than trying to fix something that is, in your own words, out of order, like let's get it set up to your owner onboarding, because that's really where you're collecting this information. That's why you're collecting it. So what we'll do, okay, let's think about this. So they're gonna get this form in an email, they're gonna fill it out, that information is then gonna go back into your onboarding process, which it sounds like the onboarding process is in under construction.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you open up a new window with your actual form? Looks like you may have it. All right.
So this is what it
So,
looks like on their side, and then they click acknowledge, and then you can see all these different things that they fill out.
okay. Holy mother of pearl. Okay.
Yeah, I was informed that ours is the worst one LeadSimple's ever seen.
You're
So
worried about a W-9?
I told you, after the management agreement, we signed the management agreement and then we put them through hell. Okay.
All right. So I think the way to reduce some of the friction on this form is if we already have some of the information, like how do we get the owner a link so that as much of what we already have is already pre-filled, and then they can just fill out the rest. Is it just this one screen, or is there like a page 2 where it asks more stuff?
It's pretty much this. So I'll tell you where we're at right now. So what we did is we give them a link, and they have 30 days that they can go back and edit and wait until they're done. Our onboarding team is now filling out a bunch of this. They didn't used to, but they are. So what we did is we said, hey, we're going to put in the address field. Do not touch this field. We're going to put it in based on what's in LeadSimple on the lead side. We thought that was going to match it up and it was going to pull it over. That hasn't been working, but it might just be that other Zap was broken. So we are filling it out, and then we are sending them in our owner onboarding process the link, and they pull it up and it says, oh, cool, 60% of this is done, but there are pieces we need you as the owner to write or do.
Does Gravity Forms have the ability to make a field read only?
I know it can do a conditional field. Let's check it out. I know it can do a conditional field. I don't know if it can do read only, but because we were going to do the hidden field, but the problem was if we pulled it up, it was hidden from us too. So it didn't work. Let's see. That field would
weird.
be, that field right here would be, I don't know if we can make it read only appearance. And hidden or administrative. Maybe that's how it's done.
Yeah. So because basically what we want to do is like put pre-fill, store that information because we're going to use it later, but we don't want them to edit it, right? And so this would be the way. I know in Jot forms you can do that. You can make it read only so they can't mess with things. Um, so
I'll
yeah,
look
something
more
you'll
into
want to
that.
play around with and see, because then you can change things up. All right, so now let's go back to the front end of the form and scroll down. Confirmation. How'd you hear about us? Property owner type. So they fill this out after the management agreement?
Yeah, management agreement signed. Next step is we send them this, they fill that out, and then that kicks off everything for us from that point.
So like property owner type and all that, you would already know?
Typically, every once in a while, somebody's like, I just want to sign, I want to go, and they barely talk to us. So we fill it out to the extent we know, because we do have some owners that are like, send me a management agreement, I'm ready to sign. And we're like, hold on
Yeah.
a little
What, I
bit.
don't
But
even know your last name.
yeah, sometimes they only want to talk to us for 10 minutes.
Wow. Okay. All right. So I'll research this just so we're not listening to me breathe, but the ability to send, because you have the gravity forms is embedded into your WordPress, but there's the ability to send kind of the URL that's going to take them to this form that's already pre-filled out, because we can then build that in LeadSimple so that your employees aren't having to spend time like actually pre-filling. We'll just pull in those LeadSimple fields. Um, but what we need to do is basically make sure that every single field here is inside of LeadSimple, whether it's a custom field or what I call a hard coded field. I don't know if that's a proper term, but like name is a default field inside of LeadSimple.
So
So that we have that.
we had mostly done that. Well, Lead Simple had helped us do that. So a lot of these are those fields and have
Okay.
they have so this one specifically, we have 4 choices that the owners can do about photos. These are word for word verbatim of what the options are that are in our
Yep.
gravity form.
Okay. So all those are in there. So okay, so let's go ahead and go to all the fields are in there.
They should be, unless we did like minor tweaks, but they should be in there because it was working at one point.
Okay, so let's go to Zapier then. And go to, let's just create a new Zap. That way we're starting from scratch. The trigger is going to be a gravity form submission. Yeah, go ahead and click form submission. Click continue. And then select your gravity forms account. There you go.
This
All
is
right,
my
so
first time doing this, so everybody
oh,
on
okay.
here, I have
No
literally never
problem.
created a Zap before.
I will use a tool that I have then that will help with this. All right, so you're gonna go ahead and find your form. There you go. And use admin field labels. I'm gonna say true. I have no idea what that is. That's a feature that's unique to Gravity Forms. And then unique name. Please make a unique name for this app and form that Gravity Forms can use to know where to send submissions.
Would it just be so we call it the OP to client onboarding?
Yeah. And then click continue. And it's gonna pull up some sample data. Click test trigger. Scroll down. Does this seem like a new owner one?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
one that just came in recently.
perfect. So go ahead and outside of that box to the right, just scroll down so we can click continue. All right, so now we are, I don't think we need to do a filter because it allows you to pick the specific form. So now go ahead and do LeadSimple. And for the event, we are going to go ahead and do find lead. Go ahead and click continue. and click your LeadSimple account. Click continue. All right, so now for pipeline, go ahead and click that box, and you're going to want to select your prospective clients. And for the search, go ahead and click that and do email.
Just
Oh, I'm
click this
sorry,
one.
click right there, yeah.
All right.
So you'll need to go ahead and delete this right there. All right, so now, and then go ahead and click continue.
Oh, sorry.
You're all right.
Continue. So what happens if they use a different email?
Right, and so that's the problem with, that's why we want to have this form somewhat pre-filled so that we can control that. And so there's a couple things that you can do. You can either search by the email address, or that's why the hidden field thing comes into play, because then you could put in a like lead ID, which will be some long crazy string that you can see right here, the pipeline ID. That way, you know, when the client sees that, they're like, what in the world is that? That's why you look at most forms when you fill it out, they always have some type of unique field. That's why, because you can track it and go back and forth, and it's not something that's going to get messed up by the client, or they have a different email address, you know, etc. So since we don't have that right now, we're just going to use the email address. Go ahead and click test action,
Okay.
and it's going to tell us whether it found it or not. And looks like it did, and it found the lead. So now that we've found that, we now need to do something. So go ahead and scroll down to that little plus sign right here. And we are now going to update the lead. So go to click LeadSimple. And for the event, we are going to update a lead and click continue.
So does lead in this context mean contact, or is it very specifically?
It doesn't. So this is kind of a nuance about LeadSimple, and kind of starting as a CRM and then expanding into process. So a lead inside of LeadSimple is actually a relationship, right? So in a lead, you usually have a contact, a property. You may have multiple contacts, multiple properties, and all that together is a lead.
Okay.
And so that's what we're updating here. And in part of that lead, we may update some contact fields and some property fields. Click continue. Click your for pipeline, prospective clients. And then for the lead, go ahead and click on custom, because what we're going to do is we're going to reference the result of a previous step. So now go ahead and click on 2 where it says find lead in LeadSimple, and click right here where it says ID.
So this is our team member. Is it pulling the wrong email?
No. If you click on show all options right here, go ahead and click on that button.
Okay.
And then scroll. It's going to pull up every
Field.
option possible in that, right?
Oh, wow.
Holy.
A lot of info, and this is why the integration that LeadSimple has with Zapier, in my opinion, when I've worked with Podio, Asana, etc., why it's so powerful is they literally let you have access to almost every field possible, and so sky's the limit. But what we want is the ID of this lead. We don't want the contact ID or the property ID, which is an option here. We want the
We're good. We
ID
got it
of
in
that,
there.
which you got. So now
Yeah.
go ahead and click out of that box.
Okay. Back.
Just click over here. Okay, so now we now have the fields that we want to update. We probably don't need to update the name of the lead because that's already in there. But if you scroll down, you will that's interesting. You only have, okay, let me think about this. So the only field that we have right now for the lead is this one right here. Are you interested in purchasing more rental properties? And is that one that's on that intake field?
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead and click that, and go ahead and click custom. And you're saying, no, we want these options. So where it said yes, no, maybe, that's because those are the options that Gravity Field has, but we actually want to put the answer that the person provides every single time this form is filled out. So go ahead and click on one for that one. And then go ahead in the search, because you probably got a ton of fields here, right here. Whoop. Just type in interested.
Ooh,
And then we're trying to find
right, this
right
one,
there. Yep.
the maybe one.
Well, maybe was their answer, but that is the field that we want. So now go ahead and click out of that.
Okay.
All right, so now because that's the only field that is a lead specific field, we've updated it. We're not going to update who's assigned to this. We're not going to update their stage, anything like that. So now we need to update the property and contact. So go ahead and click that plus sign. And we'll just do a little bit of this to teach you how, and then later on you can go crazy with this. But now we need to go ahead and find the property. Click continue. Select your account. And then for search, we are going to put from go ahead and click on, let me think about this. Go ahead and click on number 2, find lead. And then in the search box right here, put in property. Scroll down. We actually, why is it doing this? Keep going. There we go. Okay, so we want properties and look for a property ID. Nope. All right, scroll up. Whoop, whoop. Stay in the blue section. Sorry. And we got property city as a custom field. Change it to address. Sorry. Search for address. All right, scroll down. There we go. Okay. Properties, full address ID. This one right here. So why do we search by ID opposed to address? Again, what if somebody misspells the address name? They spell out lane versus LN. That ID right here is unique to that property that's in that lead. So go ahead and continue on. Click continue. Click test action.
This is good stuff. Uh-oh.
Failed to find a property in LeadSimple. Error from halted execution. Nothing could be found on search. That doesn't make sense. Oh, brain fart. Go ahead and click these 3 dots right here. I'm sorry. Whoever's still watching this, you're getting like the real behind the scenes, like how to build Zap, and then go ahead and click delete.
This is good for me though, because I am, like I said, this is the first time I've ever even seen this side of
Yeah, and
Zapier.
it's honestly like Zapier really isn't hard, but you're trying to think, okay, what piece do I need to grab from which
Yeah.
software and connect it? So
This is
what we're
real
gonna
life right
do,
here. This is
yeah.
I mean, this is exactly the situation that I go through when I'm building a Zap. It's like you're like, wait, what was I trying to do again? You're getting weird error messages. You're backing up. I mean, this is how it
Well, and you
works.
also have the pressure of you're on live internet
Yeah.
and everybody's like, oh, let's see if Wolf can do this. And you're like, I don't want to look stupid. Go ahead and click event and do update property. I forgot. We already had the property ID, so we don't need to find it. And then go ahead and select your LeadSimple account.
This is absolutely classic right here.
Yeah. So now click on property and click on custom. And then now go to step 2 and then click on show all options. Now in the search box, put properties ID.
Properties ID.
Yeah, it'll just cut down the search results. And then space ID, sorry. And right there, properties full address ID.
At the bottom.
Oh, there we go. Very last one. Okay.
All right, now click that out. Okay, so now that we have that, if you scroll down, you're going to see all your fields now, right? And
Yep.
so all you're going to do is you're going to map the lead. So right now you're looking at the fields that LeadSimple has, and we need to now say, okay, LeadSimple, we're going to start slamming in gravity form information. So I'm assuming it's never a good thing to do, but property type and the address is already in there, so we don't want to update that. So scroll past it. And now this is where we start doing stuff. You probably are not asking them this. This is probably part of another process, but like, is one of the fields pets allowed? Yes or no in your gravity form?
Yeah, I think so. Oh yeah. So this is mixing in all of my custom fields now with
It
Yeah,
is.
so
So
okay.
you
you'll just
you
have
need
to
to find which ones are part of this onboarding form. And
Okay.
basically those are the ones that you're going to update, or that you're going to tell it, here's the matching field inside of gravity forms.
Okay. So like the power company, that's
Right.
one
So
that it
so
that it
go power
asked.
company, click on power company, click on custom, and then click on submission. I'm gonna give a shout out to Rob at LeadSimple. He's the one that taught me about this annotation tool, the John Madden effect in Zoom. It's really helpful.
That's awesome.
And then in here, go ahead and just type in power, and we should have a field where they're,
Selecting.
yeah, either selecting or what they're. Maybe you don't call it power, whatever you call it in gravity forms.
electric.
Maybe it should be power. Hmm. Let's see.
Yeah, I
Right.
see some.
No, that's laundry hookup.
I thought it was in there, but maybe that's
Oh,
do you
right
know what?
there. Electric, which city or service do you pay the bill to?
Oh yeah,
Utah
right there.
Power.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So, for the sake of time and viewers, it's just rinse and repeat, right? So you're just gonna go to each one and say, okay, what's the answer from gravity forms? Blah 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 blah. So when that is all done, if some of your fields are now contact fields, go ahead and click out here so we can scroll down. Go all the way down to the bottom. Click here. And do you want to take a guess on what you're going to do now? This is where I test my skills as a teacher.
Uh I have
If
I
you
we're
want to
gonna
update the contact now.
oh if I want so I'm gonna go LeadSimple
Yep.
and then I'm gonna say update would it but it wouldn't be just contact, right? Would it be lead or
No,
would it
it'd be
be
contact.
contact? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the contact is going to be
Remember, we don't want to look at your current entries. We want to look at every time this is filled out. There you go.
and I'm doing find.
Yep.
And then we want to type in name.
What's it called? No, do contact. Type in contact, space, and then ID. Oh, yeah, there you go. Contacts ID. Now, this is where we're getting ready to go to black belt level. You'll notice, scroll down. Don't click on anything, but I just want to show our viewers right here is the contact. This person, this lead has multiple people, and you can see the comma right there. And so this is where some of you that are watching are going to crap your pants because you're like, oh my gosh, what I'm going to do. We need to separate these fields because you may have a deal that has one owner, two owners, three owners, four owners. And yesterday we talked about a loop. I think I'm not going to show this online. So maybe I can set some up with you, Mark, to show you how to do this because it's we're going to have some errors that we're going to have to work through. But basically, for those watching, what we're going to do is take this field that has multiple contact IDs. We're going to tell Zapier, hey, this is a string of data separated by commas. And it says, okay, that's cool. And then we're going to run a loop that says every time there's a contact, go ahead and update these fields, because we don't know how many times you're going to have, you don't want to create a Zap for a 1 owner Zap, a 2 owner Zap, a 3 owner Zap. You want it to be dynamic so that it can automatically say, hey, I have 2 contacts, so I'm going to go ahead and update both of those. Next time this form fills out, you may have 3 contacts, so it's I think a little much, and just how long we've been on this Zoom call.
Yeah.
So I'll set something up with you, Mark, so that we can do that. But you nailed it. You knew exactly where to go, that we want the contacts ID, and we're going to update it. So now what your homework or your mission, if you choose to accept it, is go back to the update properties and map all those fields.
Whew. Okay. Wow.
Awesome. Well,
So basically, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is this form gets filled out, and within 1 to 5 minutes, depending on your Zap plan, your property will get updated, the lead will get updated, your contacts all get updated.
So what I'm noticing with the contact IDs is these fields are totally different, though.
What do you mean?
Like these are different.
Because
these are different
it's going to
fields.
show all your custom fields for contacts, right? And so I saw vendor, so you have some vendor specific, and so that's why this, for some people who have never done Zapier, they're looking at this like WTF, right? Like, I can't handle this.
Yeah,
it's
Mark,
because it's pulling all your data.
You've got custom fields that are tied to your lead. You've got custom fields that are tied to your property, and custom fields that are tied to your, what did I say? Lead, property, and contact. Yeah.
So and you have different types of contacts.
Yeah. Wolf was just walking you through how to update each of those 3 types of custom fields. That's why you're seeing like so many.
Mm-hmm.
My general practice is to use as few custom fields as possible anywhere, because the more custom fields you have, the more they're very powerful, but they can break things. Like, for example, I don't know what happens. I don't know what happens if you rename a custom field, or if you like change the name of it.
Changing the name of it's not bad. Changing the options in it is bad.
Yes.
Okay.
I say it's the answers that you put in there is where things get broken. And so I'm just to give a juxtaposition, I'm a little bit the opposite. I believe in total custom fields, but my rule is if you're not going to act upon that data, don't collect it. Like, why are you collecting it? If it's not going to move the needle for you or allow you to do some, like for me, I like the conditional logic. So if I'm going to collect data, there better be somewhere in there some conditional logic that is going to automate. Because if not, why are you storing it? Especially in California, where like there's rules on this stuff now, and we have to be able to provide copies of all this information. Like, you want to decrease that liability. So if you're never going to act on the data, don't even ask for it.
Go ahead, Mark.
Can I ask you guys a question about custom fields really quick?
All right, we got about 1 minute. We got to wrap this up.
Okay, what do you guys prefer? So say that I have a bunch of statuses that I could update. So let me give you 3 examples. We bring on an owner and we say, okay, is this a leasing agent only where we're not going to manage it? We're just leasing it for them. Is this a tenant takeover, or is this dual listed for sale? And we want to know one of those 3. Do you say, is it a leasing agent only? Yes or no? Separate field, is it a tenant takeover? Yes or no? Is it a dual listed? Yes or no? Or do you guys create one and say, special circumstances, and then you make multiple choice LAO, tenant takeover, or dual listed for sale? What would you guys prefer?
I would do one field, because that particular scenario, you're talking about the type of client you have.
Yeah.
And what level of service. So for me, we have a field that's called level of service, and that's where we have, and depending on what they pick, will then determine all kinds of things in lots of processes. Like, do we charge a lease renewal fee or not?
If only one of those things could ever be true at any given time, like you could never have 2 out of 3, then yeah, one is it just like what Amy
Good
was saying.
points.
One is cleaner. But going back to something you just said, Wolf, you perfectly encapsulated something I've been trying to articulate. You said, and I wrote it down. If you're not going to act upon
Is
the
it
data,
Peter Twitter worthy?
yes,
Like, am I gonna be in a tweet?
yes.
All
If you're
right.
not going to act upon the data, don't collect it. It's so great because for a while our owner intake form had all this data that we were gathering, and then it was like we weren't doing anything with it. So why were we collecting it? And I even take that a step further. I will not create a custom field unless it's used in more than one place within
Yeah.
the process. If I'm only going to use it once in the process, a custom field is overkill, and I just like to have that data entered at runtime. All right, we've got to wrap. This has been awesome. I want to thank everyone. Thank you, LeadSimple, for helping host this. Thank you, Mark, for coming on and volunteering. Thank you, Wolf, for coming on and being an unbelievable expert at everything having to do with process and Zapier. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This recording is going out to the various email lists. That's all I've got. Amy, Wolf, anything else you guys want to add, you folks?
I'll email Mark just so we can set up a time, and then well, Mark already knows what I'm presenting at his group in Utah. I'll kind of help you steer on. You may not want to do that anymore because it's now going to be automatic. So
I'm a little scared of what we just
sign up for
started.
March 15th. That's all I got to say. LeadSimple, March 15th.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. We're gonna call it here. Have a great day.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
See ya. Bye.